2019 meeting of the MSAD51 Board of Directors. Our first item for action this evening is to approve meeting minutes. And the first approval that I need a motion for was the July 8th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
He did assure us they would be loud, so. Any discussion or questions about that July 9th meeting?
Restart the meeting.
All right, all in favor? And if you weren't here or didn't attend, you may abstain. All in favor?
I'm abstaining.
All right. Anna's abstaining. Can I have a motion for the August 19th minute?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, so we are going to move right into our opening of schools site improvement plans from our building administrators. I'm not sure what the order is. I don't have it written down, so talk amongst yourself and decide. All right, first up we have Sally Laughlin from Mabel I. Wilson School.
Andy, to do that right? Hi, it's my pleasure to share with you a little bit about what Mabel I. Wilson Site Improvement Plan is for this year. But first, I would just like to thank the Scott Pullen and Facilities, because Mabel I. Wilson had an unprecedented number of moves among classrooms. We had 3 portables adjusted. One was already there and one was moved. All of them are hooked together. The playground was thought through and refenced. And I'm happy to say the building is gorgeous. And we had our pre-K orientation today, which was in a gorgeous new classroom, and I think it went super well. So thank you for all the support that got to our opening day. The couple of school improvement goals that I would cite for you is our emphasis on school-wide behavior goals for what we call Tier 1 RTI. And the time we'll spend with every faculty member this year to be clear, what are those strategies that will help all students be successful? And the other area that I think we're very aware we're working on is literacy. And based on the first year of our literacy review, we are jumping into foundational skills, not only in teacher professional development, but in curriculum piloting. And just want to say, with 185 kindergartners, it is an exciting and wonderful place to be. Thanks.
Thank you, Sally. Does anyone have any questions for Sally? One question I have, Sally, I know the literacy audit, do you expect that to be wrapped up within this school year, or do you see it, or maybe that's a question for you, Susie, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, Susie and I just spent the last 2 hours talking about it,
Oh.
so that's awesome.
Gotcha.
Yes, we have a schedule that we should be done this spring.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. Next up would be, I guess, Carol MacArthur from Greeley Middle School 4-5. Well done, Sally. I'll be here a bit longer. So we've had a great start to the school year. We've welcomed 7 new staff members for just a 2 grade level building. That is quite a percentage of our overall staff. And we also have 17 new students across the 2 grade levels. So we are especially grateful for that additional 5th grade classroom that was in the budget last year. Without it, we'd be starting the year with class sizes of 24. So in terms of our school goals, we actually have maintained our overarching goals from last year. We're really focusing on having a sustained focus over time with the work that we're doing. So our first goal is around improving staff and student culture by increasing the level of respect and collaboration, which is directly connected to our wellness goal. And then our second goal is refining curriculum, alignment, instructional practices, and assessment tools in support of standards-based learning, and that's connected to the college and career readiness goal. A structure that we use in Greeley Middle School 4-5 to recognize the work that we do collectively and as individuals are shout-outs. And so at our first day staff meeting, our shout-outs reflected both student achievement data as well as some of the check-in survey data from last spring. Each of those shout outs was an opportunity to celebrate some of the things that we're doing well, and in the spirit of continuous improvement, our SIP goals are connected to those shout outs. So just wanted to share a few of those for you, which highlights some of the work we're doing this year. So as last year, we had shared that we were working on high-impact teaching strategies, specifically clear learning targets and providing students with descriptive feedback. On the staff check-in survey last spring, one of our shout-outs was that 81% of our staff indicated that they were quite confident about the learning targets and the curriculum that they needed to teach. Not only is that an impressive percentage, but it also was 12-point improvement from the prior year. Similarly, 75% of our staff said they were quite confident that they can meet the learning needs of their most advanced students, and that was a 30-point increase from the prior year. So we feel like we can directly connect that to our professional learning from last year, and we'll continue to working on HITS this year with a more direct connection to formative assessment. Another shout out that was shared was, according to our spring iReady assessment, 76% of our 4th and 5th graders are on grade level in reading. Their greatest strength being in the comprehension of literature. And so our professional learning this year in our SIP goal is focused on nonfiction text strategies across all academic settings. And we're looking to improve our student performance in informational reading. And then also in our spring iReady assessment, 84% of our 4th and 5th graders were on grade level in math. Both numbers and operations and measurement were our highest domains at 88% each. So our professional learning this year is going to focus on understanding numerical fluency and the instructional strategies to improve student performance in algebra and algebraic thinking. And then lastly, as Sally mentioned, the literacy review that was conducted last year by the district, one of our goals is to address the gaps in the foundational literacy skills. So all classroom teachers now have a draft K-5 scope and sequence, common assessment, and new spelling and vocabulary programs that they'll be piloting. So we'll dedicate a fair amount of our professional learning time to learning research-based spelling strategies that will further our students' literacy skills. So we have lots of work ahead of us, and we're looking forward to a year of learning and growth as educators in order to increase student achievement.
Excellent. Questions from the board? Observations? I think those iReady tests are incredibly impressive, so I think that shows that there's a lot of work happening, so thank you. All right, Mari from Greeley Middle School.
Hi, everyone. So at Greeley Middle School, 6-8, we've had a smooth start to the school year. The first week, we were focusing on teaching our 6th graders and reminding our 7th and 8th graders of routines. And we set the tone for that on the first day of school with an opening assembly to welcome students back to school and review basic procedures. We revisited our unofficial school motto, which is kindness is how we do business, and provided time for students to acclimate to their lockers, their schedules, and all of the newness that comes with the start of a school year. This week, teachers and students are getting busy with curriculum during classes, and our 7th graders are either on Cow Island as I speak or preparing to go next week. So GMS is already a busy place. This year, our site improvement plan is focused on reflecting and refining the numerous initiatives that we've lifted in the last few years. And we have 2 goal areas that I would like to highlight for you. The first is a curriculum and RTI goal. This year, we'll continue to refine our co-teaching practices in math and literacy, refine our intervention block processes, including use of data to drive instructional decisions and to monitor student progress towards their goals. We're continuing to participate in the literacy audit at the district level, and we will continue to develop our high-yield instructional practices. Carol mentioned high-impact teaching strategies. That's the same thing. Our focus has been on metacognition, and we will wait to hear what teachers are seeking more of, but we're starting again with metacognition because that was a pretty popular one to work with at the end of last year. Our second goal is a culture and climate goal. And this year we're continuing to focus continuing our focus on creating a safe and welcoming school community by teaching our students expected and unexpected behaviors and offering direct instruction in issues of equity through our ADL curriculum. We're closely monitoring student attendance and reaching out to families whose children are chronically absent to collaboratively plan ways to increase their attendance. And we're continuing to promote restorative practices through community and restorative circles in lieu of or in addition to more traditional disciplinary approaches. And so, as I mentioned, those aren't really new things at Greeley Middle School, but they are adaptive changes that do require time and resources to implement. And so with that in mind, we're devoting much of our professional learning time to allow teams of teachers to use data to analyze which students require RTI interventions, to determine what interventions to provide, to plan instruction, and to assess progress towards specific goals, to learn deeply about high-impact teaching strategies that, when implemented with fidelity, have been shown to increase student learning, and to refine and reflect on our curriculum goals related to 6-8 alignment, key standards, and common assessment data. So I'm feeling really good about the start of the school year and our focus going forward. And if there aren't questions, then I'll pass it off to Chris Hoffman. But if you have questions, I'll take them.
Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maury. And indeed, for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Chris Hoffman. I'm the principal here at Greeley High School. It's been a very busy start to our year. Obviously, we're 5 days of students into the year. We had 2 very busy days last week of orientation activities, including both information sharing as well as a day of fun community building. I'll just share a couple of personal highlights from the start of the year. The first is that on our freshman orientation day, August 22nd, I decided to personally go pick up the students who needed a ride, and so I drove the van out around Cumberland, North Yarmouth to pick up our kids. And there is nothing like a 9th grader stepping on the bus for their first day of high school, especially when the principal is the one picking you up. I proved to be a rather intimidating presence, I think. And my second highlight was that on our second day of school, when we held our sort of community building carnival activities, yes, I was successful in dunking Jeff in the dunk tank. The video evidence is on my phone. I thought about projecting it, but chose not to. So before going into our goals for the year, I do just want to note we had some significant facilities changes, and I want to thank the board for their support of those changes, as well as to Scott and Jeff for their initiation and financing, and to Don Foster and his entire team. We have 2 beautiful new art rooms, refurbished and enlarged cafeteria, new classrooms in the first floor of the Institute building. A lot to be proud of. It was a lot of hard work. It took a number of folks some August weekends, including myself, to physically move stuff around to be ready for the start of school. And I was very thankful that we were ready. We got there. But the projects that we did in just a matter of 10 weeks were pretty impressive. On to our goals. We have 2 multi-year goals. One of them is truly a straight continuation from last year, and the other is a little bit revamped. The revamped goal, or the different goal, is the first, which is to build and implement systems and programs that support the development of collective efficacy among staff, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. And then our second goal, what I'll come back to, is the same wording exactly as last year, which is to improve Greeley's community culture by elevating the level of respect, sense of belonging, and collaborative spirit of the school. So in speaking to that first goal about collective efficacy, we're really talking about the belief and the actions of our teachers as a collective unit to move the needle, and so that we know as a group that we are the ones influencing our students' learning. To achieve that goal, and as like Maury said, this is a long-term goal out of which we expect to reap significant student achievement gains. To reap that goal this year, I worked with our building leadership team, the ILT instructional leadership team, to focus on the things that we thought we would do first. And those are really to hone our protocol-driven discussions of student common assessments. So to really work with the work that students produce, to identify the instructional strategies that are most benefiting students to achieve and to identify gaps that are resulting in limits to that achievement. And the second component is, like Carol and Mari mentioned, to really focus our professional development time on instruction and introduce staff to and work with new instructional strategies that are effective and research-driven in their impact, and also to have staff share the strategies that are working for them as a part of that professional development time. And then to the second goal, as it relates to community culture, we want a culture of high expectations. Mari mentioned attendance, and that's certainly a part of what we are looking for in those expectations. We're thankful to the board for their support of the Dean of Students position. So we have 2 teachers who are now working part-time as Deans of Students, Heather Gagan, a physical education teacher, and Don Legere, a math teacher. We believe that those positions will help us greatly in reducing our chronic absenteeism. 2 years ago, that was as high as 16.9% among our student population. We were successful to reduce that down to only about 11% last year, and I credit Don significantly for his getting started on that. But even at 11%, we're still above some of our neighboring districts, and I think the addition of the Deans of Students positions will allow us to have more contact time with kids, to follow up when they're not here, to make positive connections so that they're here more often. In addition to a culture of high expectations, we want a culture of support. We look forward to working with the district as a whole on its equity and inclusion training throughout the year. We are also excited this year to be hosting a mental health first aid training for all of our staff on the October 11th in-service day. That entire day will be devoted to a day-long mental health first aid training, out of which all of our staff will receive a nationally recognized mental health first aid certificate. And lastly, over the course of this year, we expect to fully redesign our advisory program. When interviewing for this position permanently, I was asked the one thing that I would change about our school, and it was our advisory program, and I intend to do that. I hope that this time next year, I'll be explaining to you a very different structure and a very different approach for how we will support our students through that program here at Greeley High School. And I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Yes, Peter?
Absenteeism,
Yes.
is that the average daily?
So chronic absenteeism, a student who is chronically absent is a student who has missed 10% or more of school days. So over the course of our school year, a year of 185 school days, a student that misses 18 days or more is considered chronically absent.
But the percentage that you were saying, 16%, is that across the whole student body?
Correct.
Now, is that skewed by the,
No. In the high school specifically, yeah.
it is, so is that skewed by the, the kids going off to Paris and Cancun before February vacation
Yes, it is.
and spring vacation?
Yes, it is.
Is that a skewed thing?
Yes, any absence, not just unexcused absences, has the potential to count against us and to increase our percentage. of
So it's
chronically
lower kind of on a regular school day, but it gets skewed by the,
absent. So that percentage is not an average daily. That's not based on, that's not any given day. We're at 16%. That's
I understand. but it-
over the course of the entire year.
Right, but it's skewed by those pre- and post-holidays, I would suspect.
Among other factors, yes, it is.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No question, just a comment. I think that's really wonderful that you're doing the mental health first aid training for all staff in October. I think that's really great in terms of helping our schools just become more trauma informed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everyone. Sometimes it's funny, like, I've gotten like 2 text messages or an email like, hey, great school year, and they send it to me, and it's kind of ironic because that has very little to do with me overall. I mean, that's by and large to, how you guys are greeting students and opening your schools. And I've just heard from so many people that it's incredibly successful this year, and there's a lot of happy students and happy parents. So thank you. And I appreciate hearing all the goals, and I think we're going to have a great year. Thanks. Did you have anything you would like to say? I'm sorry, Jeff.
I think
got plenty to say.
Okay, so moving on, we'll do superintendent's report and
This is where I get to say something. So I do want to just thank the leadership team for all of their work. The school year has been incredibly successful. Start very smooth. I think it's just a lot of excitement in the district this year. Probably the same as usual on any given year, but just seems a little bit more than normal. Everybody seems really happy and ready to be back for the school year. So I will say that I might have gotten dunked last week during the high school carnival. However, I was able to dunk the high school principal twice, once legitimately and once by a little bit of cheating. But anyway, it was fun to see the kids at the high school enjoying themselves for a couple hours in the afternoon last week. A lot of events. The high school staff did a great job organizing that event. All the schools had nice opening events of some kind, just kind of welcome the kids and the staff back. I think it was just a really nice, smooth week. We have had a lot of renovations on the campus. I believe we had at least a dozen different projects going on, some of them very involved projects on the campus, and I would like to reiterate my thanks to Mr. Poole and Mr. Foster for all of their very hard work managing many projects. And you'll have an opportunity to see pictures and get a complete rundown of every project that was completed. I want to thank the board for all of their support on supporting the capital money that went out to the voters. Equity and inclusion, we have retained the services of CCI, Community Change of Boston, as most people know by now. And this is a long-established Boston-based organization that is helping us this year to plan and program for greater equity in our district, starting with racial discrimination, and that will be our first stop. We have 40 spots open for a workshop on September 24th. This is an all-day workshop open to parents, students, staff members, and community members. And we had over 100 people show interest by filling out a form and writing a little blurb on why they would be interested in participating. I want to thank those 100 people, and we're going to have to disappoint a few people in the next couple of days. We'll be getting back to people and letting them know we can only take 40, and we have to have a balanced room of different stakeholders. But we appreciate the support. We have a lot of new staff in our district this year, and we are really excited. We started actually tweeting bios, quick bios and pictures on all of our communication areas, and we'll be continuing to do that over the next month or so. And by the way, in terms of communication, we have added, in addition to Twitter, Facebook and the superintendent's blog. We also have added Instagram this year. So if you would like to follow us on Instagram, and actually we have a lot of traffic on Instagram since we actually started posting about a week ago. We have a lot of people that have joined Instagram, maybe have dropped Twitter and joined Instagram instead. But we will be posting on all 4 of those communication vehicles regularly. And we also have a community list, and if you're not on any of those social media sites and you'd like to just be on our community list, please make sure you call our district office, and we will get you on that community list. We have a lot of folks that are on there, and we have newsletters that go out every Thursday from the district. And a quick congratulations to Elia Robinson, a 7th grader, for being published in the Portland Press Herald in August, and she wrote an article called In the Vanguard, Full of Striking Work. It was a kid review, and it was really exciting to see her in the Press Herald. MIW teacher Connie Russell has been recognized by the National Board of Certified Teachers for her outstanding leadership in the teaching profession, specifically in taking time over the summer to lead teachers in their pursuit of supporting national board candidates. And finally, congratulations to Christopher Gilbert, a 12-year-old GMS student who published his very first book called Quantum Mechanics. And it's a very lively book, taking a very complex topic and making it manageable for me to read and understand. So I have a part 2 of a superintendent's report tonight, so I'm going to go up to the screen for that part. Mr. Hoffman. So I wanted to give you tonight just a quick preview of our enrollment and where our enrollment is. Before I do that, though, I'd like to show you 2 photos if you haven't seen them yet. These are 2 photos that of 2 new playground structures on the MIW playground. We've had a lot of interest in that, in those 2 structures. The kids are loving it. We did have to close the rocket, I believe, for a day in order to make sure we had some training video in place and make sure safety and all that for the kids. But so far, these are very popular structures that have been added to the MIW playground over the summer. Our facilities team was, instead of enjoying the Indigenous, I'm not sorry, that's coming up, Labor Day holiday, they were out in the playground enjoying putting the structures in for the kids in time for Tuesday morning. So I want to thank our facilities staff for doing that. This is our enrollment as of right now, and I just want to go through those numbers very quickly just to give you an idea where we are. This year, obviously, we started a pre-K program, and we have 28 students who are participating in that program. We have 32 slots, but as an agreement with Child Development Services, they asked us to hold 4 slots open as students get identified throughout the school year. So that's what we did. So currently we have 28 students, and as Mrs. Laughlin noted, there was a pre-K orientation open house today, and Monday is the first day of our pre-K program, so we're very excited about that. K through 3, currently we have 666 students enrolled at Mabel I. Wilson School, K through 3. That is, a year ago we had 614 students enrolled K through 3. And the year before was 604. So we've gained 52 students over just the last year and 62 students at that school over the last 2 years. GMS 4-5, we have 310 students right now. That's pretty much in line with what the enrollment has been at that school over the last 2 years. 6-8, same thing, pretty much in line with the enrollment over the last 2 years, 479 students, and GHS 652 students this year. So we have a total enrollment, including pre-K, of 2,135 students as of today. That's a 61 student increase over a year ago, and 92 student increase over the last 2 years, just to give you an idea where our enrollment is. So with pre-K, with 2,135 students, if you take out the pre-K numbers, we're pretty much exactly what planning decisions had projected for our enrollment on this date. So we're pretty much where our numbers are supposed to be in terms of planning decisions. By adding pre-K, we're obviously up 28 students. So planning decisions have projected 2,101 students, pretty close to that right now. If you remove pre-K program, which they did not include in their 2016 report. So we're pretty much right on the mark with what they said where we would be. Looking at Mabel I. Wilson School, which is where our growth really has been for the last 4 years, you can see the increase in the enrollment from March 2015. We had 541 students enrolled, and then as of today, we have 666 students enrolled. The original projected numbers from the Planning Decisions 2016 report shows that we'll have 708 students enrolled at Mabel I. Wilson by 2025. However, we have some updated numbers that were completed over the summer by planning decisions. That company actually is out of business, but the person who completed those numbers for us back in 2016 relooked at our numbers and completed a smaller report for us, and is now projecting that we could have as high as 810 students at Mabel I. Wilson School, excluding pre-K, if nothing changes. So that's those are K through 3 numbers. And Rebecca Wandell is the one from Planning Decisions that updated our numbers over the summer, and she will be attending the October 21st board meeting, and she will be presenting those projected new enrollment figures to the board. And she'll explain to you that the numbers continue to change for a variety of reasons. Just in the last 3 years, we're seeing an increase in enrollment projections.
Jeff?
Yes, Peter.
Just a question on that. I assume it's too early to get any kind of geographic thing of where these folks are coming from for planning purposes. As far as both of the towns, are they coming out of housing developments? Are they coming out of single-family houses? Or is it, because it would probably prove a useful planning tool as other zoning thing comes in? Do we have any idea yet, or is it still too early to tell?
Yep, we have some preliminary information, and some of it actually came from a report that just got filed with the town of Cumberland. So we have their information right now. And a lot of the information is flip homes. So people are moving out of their homes, and we have younger families moving into those homes. And that's actually the majority of our increase right now. So
Well,
I
that's
can't give you
interesting.
specific information about each town.
Well,
We don't have that yet.
So they aren't coming out of new housing developments as such. It's kind of what we kind of, it's changed. And what we thought was going to happen was the older folks moving out or moving into other stuff. So that's really important information.
Yep. Yeah, obviously some of it is from developments, new developments in both towns.
Yeah.
But right now, what we've been told, and I just saw the report just this week, that was given to the town of Cumberland, that the majority of the increase in population is really from flip homes,
Great.
younger
Yeah.
families moving in.
Thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions about enrollment before I move on? No. I think it's pretty much what we've seen and we've known, and I think having those updated numbers that you'll see in October will be really important for Rebecca to be here. So I have a treat for you. This is something that we showed to the staff, and we just started to release this video. I want to give a lot of credit to, I'm always going to forget somebody when I do this, but Ashley Caswell really was the architect of the video. Shaban Vogel, who is a teacher at the middle school, contributed all the photos that you see. Tyler has been involved in this project, as well as Fran Prentice in our office, and Donna Green, I believe, also had some of her work is in here as well. But this is an opening promotional video, and it features our students, staff, and parents, and just really excited to show you this tonight. It's about 8 minutes long. So again, thank you to Ashley and all those who contribute to the video, especially the people that were willing to be interviewed and photographed. And I'm very proud of our district, but I always think a video like this makes you even more proud. Reminds you of why we do this and all the good things that all of us are hopefully contributing to all of our students, and our students are benefiting. So really appreciate it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we're widely circulating that video right now. So that's the superintendent's report.
Are we doing strategic plan year ahead? Oh. All right, so we'll move on to public comment. Seeing none, I'll give a little break if people would like to take off. Thank you. I appreciate everyone being here. All right, we don't have any formal committee reports, but I would like to hear from our students, if you guys don't mind, just, your impressions of how the year's off. It's always so helpful for me to hear from all of you, so.
Sure. We've had a great first couple days of the year. Like Mr. Hoffman said, the first 2 days were fun with our community days and dunk tanks and everything. But we also had class meetings, so it was very informational getting back. And then this week, just kind of getting back in the routine and everything. But it's been a really nice first couple days.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, is this on? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I really love how it's always kind of structured. The 2 days you come back before Labor Day, it's kind of like you kind of ease into it, and it's really like fun. It's school that's very fun. And then after that, like, you have the really long weekend, and then you get into it, and you're like, all right, now classes are going to start. It's going to be some work. But I think that's just a great way to get into it and get those first 2 days of school out of the way. And kind of that's where it's like really fun to see everybody you haven't seen over the summer. And then those 2 intro days really lead in greatly to when the actual classes start, and you kind of need to buckle down.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we will move on to our items for action tonight. Starting with the lease of the, sorry. First, we're going to go on to board goals. So they should be in your packet. And does anyone have questions, or, I kind of asked for edits, but feel free if there's something that you want to mention or highlight. Now is a totally fine time to do so. Do we read them off, or? Okay. So I'm going to ask that we all take a board goal, and, or someone does. I'll start with the first one. So the first board goal that we have is around the calendar committee. So in collaboration with stakeholder groups, evaluate and implement calendar changes that meet the evolving needs of the district and students. Tyler, you want to take number 2? Yeah, sure.
Internet's not working. Deliver, so number 2 is deliver a facility and building plan that will manage cost while meeting the space needs for the district's growing enrollment.
Anyone want to take number 3? I'll just take it. Drive a meaningful and comprehensive initiative to embrace equity and inclusion for all students, employees, community members, and family. Number 4.
Support the efforts to review and update our graduation standards to reflect 21st century challenges and opportunities in partnership with the administration, staff, and students.
Anyone for number 5?
Again, support the effort to make the campus a community destination by enabling the development of innovative programming and events at the Greeley Center for the Arts and across each of the MSAD51 facilities.
I think the nice thing about these goals, I think we can accomplish them. We can look in June and have a clear indicator if we feel that we've accomplished them. And I think that they are tied to the strategic plan. And I think they're measurable goals, which I think is important. Any other questions or discussion? All right, so now we will move on to our items for action. So the first is the lease of the transportation facility. So it's a vote to authorize into discussions of the lease. So I'm going to say the motion, if I could get a second, and then I'm sure there'll be discussion, and I know Jeff.
So moved.
All right, so I haven't read it yet, though, so we would need that.
We need to read it into.
Yeah, so, and that's a little bit more lengthy of a motion. So if anyone, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I'll just need a second. So I move that the vote entitled Vote to Authorize Lease of Transportation Facilities be adopted in form presented to this meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, Jeff, do you want to tee this one up?
Yes, as you know, the bus garage and the location of that garage has been changing over the last year or so in terms of discussions with both towns. At this point, there is a need for us to we've outgrown the space basically on Drown Road, and there's a need to either vacate the space or stay there and be part of a renovation plan. And the board's had numerous discussions at this point, and tonight I'm hopeful that there is a positive vote on this so that we can move forward. This will be to authorize the district to move forward with discussions with the town of Cumberland around renovating the Drown Road facility for transportation, which also includes their Public Works Department. And this particular plan would allow us to stay on Drown Road with renovations that include 2 bays that are dedicated to the school district. And these bays would both be drive-through bays instead of the 1 bay that we have right now, which is a back-up bay, and it's very difficult to maneuver a bus into a very narrow facility in a very aging facility that we have right now. There would also be a shared automated wash bay that would be accessible. Right now we hand wash our buses. So in conjunction with the town of Cumberland, which would also be using a wash bay, we would have access as well to that wash bay for all of our school buses. There will be an office area set aside for the school district as well as the Public Works Department, which will be in the front. It'll be a separate building in the front on Drown Road. There will also be a shared break room that would be able to accommodate all of the staff on the town and school district side at separate times. And there would be 40 parking spaces for buses in case there's a need for expanding our bus fleet. We have approximately 30 school buses right now that we park on Drown Road. So that would give us ample opportunity to have some growth in transportation. So we did run the calculations, and the motion we're asking for is to move forward with discussions with the town of Cumberland not to exceed $160,000 annually on a 10-year lease. 10 years is the maximum allowable by the state in terms of leasing facility space. We looked into the subsidy potential for getting subsidy back, basically through the EPS formula. And even though we would need to budget for this for fiscal year 21, the subsidy projection that we have on the $160,000 annually is about $144,000 that we are projecting to get back in subsidy to cover the lease. So that's a vast majority of the cost. So that's news that we just received this week in working with the state and with Drummond and Woodson to determine that. So we're very happy by that news. I think this is a viable plan, and I think it is the best plan the district has at this time. And so I'm certainly recommending this motion to you this evening.
Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add, numbers-wise? Anything about the subsidy?
I mean, Jeff had pretty much explained it, but as he said, the maximum lease that we could enter into would be 10 years, and so the maximum amount of subsidy you would get would just be on a 10-year period, okay? So I don't believe that subsidy would continue after 10 years on the project. And that's this whole calculation, as Jeff and I were talking about, is that it's based on a number of assumptions. It's based on the fact that the subsidy formula doesn't change, transportation allocation costs don't change. But it does look right now, because both towns pay the full share of their mill rate under the subsidy formula, that, we aren't going to be minimum receivers in the next 10 years, so it doesn't appear likely. So it looks like about 90% of that lease will be subsidized, and, we've just got to make sure we follow through and, write the lease appropriately and stuff, and we'll work with Bill Shane to do that. Okay, and legal counsel.
Thank you for your work to really figure out the subsidy, and as this is more money than we're spending now, because we're not spending any money to house our buses, which has been a really fortunate situation, but unfortunately that was going to come to an end. So this is where we're at. I think this is the money that we we need to spend. More students mean more buses, and I think that we're going to have a lot more of both in the future. And I think the people that work in our transportation department are ready for an upgrade as well. So,
Yeah, we've done something very similar to this with the town of Cumberland when we did the Drown Road School, and probably Peter remembers that. And we did gain quite a bit of subsidy when we had renovated that building with the town of Cumberland and received subsidy back over that same type of a lease agreement. So.
Does anyone have any questions? Peter?
Just more of a comment. I think this has been worked on by the three entities, the two towns, and this, and with the word now from Scott on the subsidy, there was a lot of thrashing and mashing going back and forth, but at the end of the day, I think we've come up with we were going to have to do something anyway because the town was going to have to move or do something with the garage, so I think kind of proves sometimes if you wait, the right thing comes out. So kudos to everybody on that one. I think we're going to have a decent facility, and the numbers are going to work out that won't significantly affect our taxpayers. So good job.
Yeah, and I would also like to thank personally Rosemary Roy and the Select Board in North Yarmouth. When it looked like we were going to have to move and we weren't sure if there was going to be space for us in Cumberland, they really stepped up and were so responsive for a plan. And then when it looked like maybe that plan wasn't, going to be moving forward in a way that was going to work out, Cumberland was there and they were willing to work with us. So I think as a school district, we're really lucky to be entering into a time where we're just working really well with the town, both of them. And so I'm appreciative. I do think that this facility is going to be what our district needs going forward. So I support this. Is everyone feeling ready for a vote? All right, so we already have our motion and our second, so I'm going to ask for all in favor. All right, excellent. Okay, and so now I'm going to make a motion that the resolution entitled Authorize Lease Purchase for 2 school buses in the principal amount of $210,000 be adopted in the form presented to this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
I skipped that, sorry guys. Discussion, Scott, Jeff?
Mike, you seconded. Who?
I made the motion,
Oh,
I just
okay.
read it out loud.
I was like-
I went ahead of myself.
I would just add that this is keeping up with our bus fleet. These are budgeted. All of the resolutions, B, C, and D, are all budgeted expenses. They were part of our budget. We're bringing these forward to you tonight because we are seeking authorization as an option to enter into leases. So what we do is we'll buy the buses or the technology equipment and the furniture outright, and then we will go ahead and enter into a lease as the fiscal year goes on if that is more cost manageable for us. So it gives us the option to do that. The board has to act within 60 days of a purchase in order for us to be able to enter into leases later on during the fiscal year. So this really gives us an option. We've done this many times. We've done this in several prior years, and we're able to cut costs where we can. We've also been able to pay off leases early in certain fiscal years. We did that in the prior fiscal year as well, paid off a couple of leases early when we have money to do that, so that going into the new fiscal year, we're well positioned to take on additional spending. So this is always a good plan for us, and we're just seeking authorization tonight to be able to enter into those leases if we need to for these areas for B, C, and D.
Scott, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Just that on the buses, it's important right now because we need to keep up with our replacement schedule and our capital plan around that. We actually had one bus that failed. We found failed this summer and the engine let go in it, and we chose not to repair that bus because it was going to cost about $35,000 to fix an old bus, and you're better off to enter into a lease over a 3-year period and buy a new bus with the updated technology, et cetera. And then, only as Jeff said, going through these, you know, our plan on these is exactly that. It's prudent fiscal management for us to be able to enter into the leases, but we also don't enter into those lease purchase agreements unless we absolutely need to as we get towards the end of the year. We take a look at where our contingency is, where our fund balances are, and that's when we'll only enter into these, is when we get to that point. So.
Something I think is important to mention too, Scott has done a really amazing job of structuring our leases, especially our bus purchases. So instead of the budget spiking on a year that we have to buy 3 buses, we're on a cycle now where we're in, not the habit, but we're replacing our buses at a rate that its impact to our budget is flat. And I think that we're getting to that point with technology as well on these technology leases. Is that correct? This should maybe be the first year that it appears more flat than others?
As one lease matures,
Right.
you want to be able to take another lease on, and then you want to be able to basically expense those items over their useful life if you can.
Right.
Okay.
And that creates a flat budget line and flat impact to taxpayers, which I think is something that everyone appreciates. So thank you, Scott and Jeff, for your work on that. It's an important, I think, distinction when we see these lease purchases coming up. Do we have a motion and a second on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the bus lease still, or am I, yeah.
You're taking a vote.
So all in favor? Okay, so we have a similar situation now. I need a motion for the technology lease as presented.
I'll motion. I move that the resolution entitled Resolution to Authorize Lease Purchase of Technology Equipment in the principal amount of $300,000 be adopted in form presented to this meeting.
Thank you, Anne. Second?
I'll second.
Did you have anything additional you wanted to add about this technology lease?
So for technology, we basically are on a technology schedule. We have a schedule for technology replacement. We try to replace at least one group of devices a year, sometimes 2 groups of devices, depending on what else is going on and how much money there is in the technology account lines. Because of the modular classrooms at Mabel I. Wilson School, we also have had to spend a lot of money from the technology accounts in order to get those retrofitted for tech. We have been very diligently replacing projectors that are on carts in all of our classrooms, especially at the elementary level over the last 2 years, and putting them on short throw projectors that are attached to the wall. We have made a lot of improvements in our network as well over the last couple of years. So all of these expenses come out of our technology accounts.
Any questions? All right, all in favor? Okay, and so I just need a motion on number D for the school furniture lease purchase.
I'll motion. I move that the resolution entitled Resolution to Authorize Lease Purchase of School Furniture in the principal amount of $150,000 be adopted in form presented to this meeting.
Second?
Second.
Thanks,
The only thing I would add to this one is that we've been replacing furniture. Sally Laughlin heads up a furniture committee for the district, or she was. Now will be Susie Robbins for this year. And that committee has been looking at different kinds of furniture for our schools. Actually, this will be the 3rd year, and we'll be completing that this year as the high school. There was old furniture in the high school from, I don't know, Joan and Pam, I would say the 50s, 60s, somewhere in that range.
And a lot of it was
Really
leftover from
old.
Falmouth.
And a lot of it was leftover stuff as well. It looked like the
Falmouth.
stuff that I went to school in. Very uncomfortable furniture, let me put it that way. And the entire high school has been we're almost completed retrofitting, thanks to the board and their support of funds to replace all of the furniture at Greeley High School. We're almost done with this school. We'll be moving on. We have a lot of needs at GMS 4-5 and Mabel I. Wilson School in particular. Those 2 schools are going to need to be next after we complete the high school. So It's been very well used, and I have checked in with students along the way, and I haven't checked in with both of you, but I would assume that hopefully that furniture is a little more comfortable than what used to be there.
Yep.
Good.
Does anyone else have any questions or discussion around the furniture lease purchase? All in favor? All right, so now if I could have the full motion read to enter into executive session, please.
I'll move that we enter into executive session to review the annual goals of the superintendent of schools pursuant to State Statute 1 MRSA 4056A.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? I think of new questions every time, too.
Yeah, Bruce Smith tells me
But it's true. If it's an average, there's 100 kids out every day.
All right, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.